situations as home builders, and that's what we do, isn't it? We work our way through situations that many other people can't figure out how to do it. And we kind of get jazzed by that. We like doing that. We like working through those issues. So I'm going to talk to you today about what we've been doing in Washington, D.C. on your behalf. And encourage you to get involved with that very much. And I want you to remember two things. The first one is 55 cents a day. And the second thing is our new tagline, which is, I think, is a wonderful tagline. You know, when you big organizations and you write strategic plans and mission statements and da-da-da-da, I've done hundreds of those. I was a local president, did it there. I was a state president, did it there. I worked on it national. This is the best one I've seen. Because this talks about what we do. Building homes, enriching communities, changing lives. That's the part I love the best. Because every time you hand a set of keys over to somebody, you change their life for the better. That's what I like, what we do. That's why I've always, since I've been in the business 40 years ago, I've worked with my dad back then, supported the Home Builders Association at all three levels. And it's really nice to be here today where I get to participate with the locals, with the state, and here I am with national. All three of us are in the same place at one time. And at every level, it's a little different. So what have we been doing? Last year, we were meeting, well actually the year before that, we were meeting with Congressman Kevin Brady out of Houston. He is the chairman of Ways and Means. He said that the Republicans, by hook or by crook, are going to do a tax reform package. Some of you in here look old enough to remember the tax reform package of the 1980s. The National Association of Home Builders drew a line in the sand and said, don't do it, didn't do anything. How did we do it? Remember? Not so good. Tax reform package. Now, I'm thinking this is never going to happen. But we're going to go through the hoops anyway. So we go to Houston, we meet with Congressman Kevin Brady, and we talk about the things he wanted to do. And here's a couple examples. Cannot deduct your construction interest anymore. Accelerated depreciation. You expense everything, including land, when you buy it, in the year you buy it. The tax rate for large corporations, down to, at that time he was talking about 15%. I don't know how he was going to do that. So we had some obvious problems with a few of these things. How could you compete with a large C corporation if you're a sub-S or an LLC and they got a lower tax rate? Lowering the mortgage interest deduction. Not a little bit significant. So these are things we talked about in 2016. We worked through it, thought we had most of everything fixed. We decided to try to do a tax credit for homeowners on their mortgages. Kevin Brady met with Paul Ryan, which Paul Ryan was an interesting thing. Granger McDonald, who was the chairman last year, and I were sitting there. Paul Ryan, I'm trying to explain to him his blueprint for tax reform. Has a few problems with it, particularly with small businesses across the country that employ the large part of America. And you know, whenever you go up there, and if you've never been up there to talk to your congressman, please do that sooner than later, because it's a really enlightening thing. There's always someone standing on the corner. And so we brought up and said, well, your blueprint for tax reform, Mr. Speaker, has a little bit of a problem with the small businesses of America. Me being a small business, I'd really like to talk to you about it. And out comes this person from the corner and whispered in his ear, and you know, the meeting was over. So, we kept getting assurances up to the week that before they were going to introduce the bill that there was going to be a tax credit in it for home ownership. Now, meanwhile, understand the realtors had already drawn a line in the sand and said, don't touch mortgage interest deduction. We won't support the bill if you don't. We got a phone call on Friday before Monday when they introduced the bill from Kevin Brady. Tax credits out the deal, can't do it. Now, we lobbied this thing for almost a year. It kept getting assurances that that was going to happen. We have some of the brightest minds in the country concerning taxes, mortgages, and homeowners. Rob Dietz, Dave Logan, these guys are they're geniuses. If you sit down and talk to them, you just blows your mind. They had this all worked out. Got a phone call. tax credits off the table, not gonna happen. Well, wait, you promised us, not gonna happen. It's too complicated, Congress can't figure it out. So one of the many daily phone calls the senior officers had was, now what do we do? Because they kind of betrayed us. Well, of course, we weren't particularly happy. So we unleashed that weekend Jerry Howard on every business channel on television we could possibly find to downgrade this tax reform package. So much so, by Sunday night, we got a phone call from one of Paul Ryan's constituents saying, please back off the speaker. We got their attention. The bill comes out Monday. Not only did they not do what they said they were doing for tax credit, but they also cut the mortgage interest deduction to $500,000. We went, we're not supporting that bill. And up to that point in time, we were on that. Senate bill got put together. We had $1 million in mortgage interest deduction. The Senate bill problems were with the LLCs and sub-S. I'll never forget this. We flew in a bunch of folks to go lobby their senators because now we're understanding that this thing's going to happen. It's going to happen in the Senate. And they sent me to see a senator from Oklahoma and a senator from Wisconsin, I think it was. And you know what? This is how good this staff is. The next 2 days, I saw those two senators on television about 4 times about our issues. They fixed the sub-S LLC problem. We now can be competitive C corps that have a 21% tax rate. We got to $750 on the mortgage interest deduction, but the tax savings on the other side for our businesses and for our people in America is going to probably make up for that. And the interest rates get up, we got to talk about it again. We got assurances that the second home, the HELOCs, the home equity loans, that they would get taken care of for modelers. Now that they didn't put in the bill, but they took care of that just recently. Whether remodelers, if you're remodeling a home, you can still take out a home equity loan and deduct the mortgage interest. We got a lot of things in that bill. But most importantly, you're going to see it next year when you pay your taxes. When you think about what you pay for your dues, being a member of the National Association of Home Builders, local to the state, you're going to save significantly more money on what you pay in your taxes next year based on that tax reform package. And you've already begun to see people hiring, people opening businesses back up because of the tax reform package. It was a huge piece of work. And the NAHB was right in the middle of it, unlike they were back in the 80s. So we've got a lot of the things that we wanted out of that. That's already been done. So now let me talk to you about what's going on now. We have 3 major issues, and they all start with L. Labor, lots, and lumber, and actually in reverse order. The lots issues, the community banks were kind of had their hands tied by Dodd-Frank when they did pass Dodd-Frank. They recently passed a bill that loosened their hands up. We're beginning to see community banks beginning to make development loans again so that we can get some of our smaller developers back out there putting lots on the market. Because part of the reason the price of these houses are skyrocketing, we're out of lots. Once we get some lots back in the ground, maybe we can begin to stabilize these prices. 2, labor. We constantly we have an organization called the Home Builders Institute. We have another organization called the National Housing Endowment. The National Housing Endowment gives money to kids and scholarships, etc. Well, they've been doing this for 4-year, 2-year colleges, for superintendents, for people that want to come out in the industry, but they haven't been doing it for the trades. So we began, and we have moved that organization to begin to give money for the trades. The Home Builders Institute, who is one of the largest Job Corps organizations in the country, has put together a program, a curriculum, that they can take to high schools across the country and introduce the trades back into the high schools. Every state I go in, we have a talk about labor. And we're beginning to see the people around the country say the same things that we're saying. You heard it here today. Not everybody goes to college, and those guys that go to college come out with all the student debt and jobs that don't pay enough to pay off the student debt. I always tell this story. We went to Johnson City, Tennessee, and in Johnson City, Tennessee, their high schools have VOTEC programs, and they have a thing called Tennessee Builds. And the kids compete, and they build things, and they get recognized for the things they built. One guy built a roll-around chicken coop. Another one built a fire pit. Another one, they had a table that cuts out wood things and makes furniture with it, with no screws, no glue, no nothing. They all stamped together. It was marvelous. Gave me a great sense of hope that maybe in the excitement of those high school kids doing this really made you feel better. But to understand that the state of Tennessee understood this and funded those was how important it was. Kentucky's doing it. Colorado Springs, the home builders in Colorado Springs is actually paying like $25 a permit more so they can put VOTEC in the schools in Colorado Springs. And the Home Builders Association in Colorado Springs is overseeing the program and making sure they've got instructors. They have 1,000 students enrolled in the VOTEC program. This kind of stuff is happening all over the country. We're beginning to get their attention. Those of you that were at the executive board meeting we had in Washington, D.C. recently, Lowe's has put out a video called Generation T. Generation T for trades. If you get online and you Google Generation T, or you go to Lowe's, you can play that video. It's a powerful video that talks right to the students, right to the people we want in the trades. It says, hey, this is a proud and great opportunity to get into. And I always tell the story of this guy I know from high school that everybody laughed at because he didn't go to college and he went to VOTEC school to learn about being an electrician. That same guy sold his electrical business 5 years after he got out for $5 million. Bought it back in 2 years for about $1 million, and now it's worth several $1 million, and owns Galatoirs downtown New Orleans. He didn't have any student debt. He got a job that paid him. They're not laughing at him now. That's the message. And I don't remember which one said it, but the parents are the key. You got to get to the parents. You got to make the parents understand that working with your hands and building homes is a noble pursuit in life. Every chance I get an opportunity to do that, I tell you. Finally, lumber. Which, by the way, I need to thank you guys, and I'm going to need help pronouncing these names. Congressman Huzina, Molinar, Upton, Wahlberg and Bishop. Y'all know them? Yeah. All right. I guess they're all men. I don't know. They just got their last name, so they didn't say Mr. and Mrs. So be sure, if you know them or you see them, to thank them for signing on to a letter from 177 congressmen and senators to President Trump to say that get back at the negotiating table with the Canadians on softwood lumber. So be sure and thank them. Here's our situation. October last year, the Canadian softwood lumber trade agreement expired. There was a 15% tariff on it up to that point in time. It began to negotiate the new tariff, or the new trade agreement, and by about February or March, they determined that they needed to raise that tariff to 20%. So why did lumber just go up 20%? Because they made it retroactive. And they had to go back and cover that other. And so they have now drawn a line in the sand, and neither side is talking to each other. And if any of y'all saw anything on the news last week, you begin to understand why we have a little bit of an issue with our leaders in Canada and the United States, which Tuesday, I'm going to see Secretary Ross, he's the Secretary of Commerce, who told us, the National Association of Home Builders, we understand this is going to be, we need to redo our trade agreement with Canada, we need to redo NAFTA. We're not going to hurt the home builders. Guess what I'm going to tell him Tuesday? I'm taking him my lumber invoices from last year and this year. Because
we are already seeing a slowdown in new construction where we were climbing steady. And I like this nice smooth climb, not these big spikes we're so used to. But we saw a 1.3 drop in new home sales last month. And my message continually to Secretary Ross, we met with some U.S. trade representatives, we met with several congressmen, we met with Secretary Mnuchin. Either Secretary Mnuchin is the Treasury Secretary, right? What's he got to do with trade? It's kind of funny. So we brought the conversation up to him, and he said, well, how much does lumber cost? And we told him. Well, how much does lumber cost now? We told him, and he says, that's incredible. So yes, sir, it's going to slow down the economy, because as home building goes, the economy goes. And if you don't believe that, you've been educated for the last 10 years. Mnuchin said that. I didn't have to tell him that. He knew it. How home building goes, the economy goes. This is the problem. I said, you know what? You need to tell the president, because obviously President Trump listens to Mnuchin when it comes to trade agreements. I said, you need to tell the president he needs a good November. He needs a good economy in November. And a good economy is related directly to how well the home builders are doing. And if they're slowing down because lumber prices are up 60 to 75% across the country, November could be a problem for him. You saw President Trump likes to tweet. So I tweet. We met with the U.S. trade representative last week, I think it was, and when I left the meeting, I tweeted out, okay, guys, get ready for high lumber prices. These guys say it's just a cycle. We'll get over it. Not the bureaucrats. Trump, I think it was 2 days later, tweeted out, Canadian trades, like, not fair, because I had put unfair on mine. Not fair. And I said, oh, it has attention? Thank God. So we're going to be working on the 3 L's. The lots we think are coming. The only problem with the lots, I was on the Fannie Mae's Affordable Housing Advisory meeting. And in this meeting is, anybody that you ever battle with inclusionary zoning at the local level was probably sitting in the room. All right? And so they're all whining about no affordable housing, how come the builders aren't building any houses, et cetera, and I'm sitting in the middle of the room, I'm not saying anything. And in a minute, the CEO of Fannie Mae is there, looks at me and says, Randy, you represent the housing industry, what's the problem? I said, the problem is 26% of everything I do is government regulations, and how am I going to get to affordable housing when 60% of the cost of a lot is government regulations? The room went quiet. Way over here, one of these nonprofit supporters of inclusionary zoning says, well, give us a list of those regulations and let's work on that. Okay? Here you go. They didn't talk about it anymore the rest of the meeting. So we got lumber prices, we got 26% of government regulations, we got 60% of the lot. 60% of the lot, by the way, has got a lot to do with waters in the U.S. A guy in Florida called me the other day, the Army Corps engineer guy in Florida told the guy, he was putting a culvert in the ditch. You guys do culvert ditches, right? Put a culvert in the ditch. He said, you got to go get an Army Corps permit. Imagine getting a 404 permit every time you stick a culvert in the ditch. That's what the old waters in the U.S. with the definition look like. Scott Pruitt, the new EPA director, has been like in the housing center, in the building, with our folks at NAHB rewriting the definition of waters in the U.S. It's incredible. Last week before last, here's what the executive board did, 125 people. The 5 senior officers met with the Federal Reserve on Monday. The entire executive board went to the White House and listened to Vice President Pence and met with his staff. Wednesday, Secretary of HUD, Carson, came to the Housing Center, sat down and answered questions for us and told us what he was going to do at HUD. And Thursday, I met with the U.S. trade representatives in that 4 days. Think of the influence you and I, as a member of the National Association of Home Builders, have in Capitol Hill. and in Washington, D.C. It's incredible. Is it worth 55 cents a day? You would never get that kind of attention up there without having that organization there. And you think about, we have a staff of about 240, we run a building about 300,000 square feet, we have 2.5 of the floors, there's 9 floors, the other 6.5 floors are rented out that gen us about $3 million in rent. We have a presence right down the street from the White House that we went into, I'm trying to remember what it was, we went in the lobby something else with a congressman, and he says, y'all are the National Association of Home Builders? Y'all are a powerful group. What can I do? You get that respect because you and I support that organization with our time, our volunteer, our money, our bill pack money, and our dues. We were talking to OSHA. So, continue to support it. Continue to support the people doing the good work back there. I'm telling you, I wake up at night worried before I got into this opportunity about OSHA walking onto one of my job sites saying, here's a $32,500 fine because you don't have the right poster on your temporary power pole. Or the EPA walking over to my job site saying, you got sand and dirt in the street, here's a $32,500 fine. That's how big the fine can be. And how would I fight it? If I got the National Association of Home Builders, I can pick up the phone and call. Site condos, what a great idea. I want to take it back to Louisiana. But you got to get to the VA and say, hey, this is not a condo. I don't need a condo approval. It's a single family house. Having that connection gave them the opportunity to do that. So they serve very, very important purposes at every level, local, state, and national. Locals in the fight for the zoning, states in the fight for the codes. Y'all are blessed to have Lee, by the way. Code's kind of my thing. I did a statewide building code in Louisiana after Katrina. By the way, any of y'all that go down to New Orleans after Katrina? Raise your hands. Thank you very much. We're in Puerto Rico now doing the same thing for them. But, so building codes are kind of neat, special. As a matter of fact, so special that we're getting the NAHB to adopt a code app, which is under the NAHB advocacy. If you go on your phone in the App Store, under NAHB advocacy, if you open that app up, it tells you all about the codes. And we're working with ICC to get a connection there to so where you can actually access the codes there. And then finally, Lee will appreciate this. When I was talking to Dominic Sims, he runs ICC. We never got an opportunity to know him either, in fact, been in the NAHB. He says to me, we got to do something to make these building codes more affordable. Affordability needs to be our #1 goal from a building code guy. I thought that was pretty good. So I appreciate being able to come back to you. Last time I saw you was in Traverse City. Rich, you looking good. And Clyde. Did Benedetto ever get over a broken leg? Where is he? There he is. Ann, Bob, Carol, Don, and Lynn. They do a lot of work for you guys. Support them, slap them on the back, tell them thank you for doing that. Building homes, enriching communities, and changing lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let them know. I know we're doing the Q&A kind of thing today, so if anybody's got one, now's your
I'd give you my
chance.
cell phone number, but Stavskov's already got it.
Okay.
No questions? I can't believe it.
I know, it's amazing. So you covered it all. That's really great.
Just,
So,
okay.
okay, David Campbell.
In Southeast, we're doing well with our new agreement regarding membership. How's that going nationally? What are your thoughts?
David asked me about what we call a pilot program, where we do a flat fee. We had 18 locals participate in that. Southeast was one of them. Some of the others, I think, did too. I think it's kind of early. The main goal from an NAHB perspective is grow the membership. The bigger numbers we got when we go to Washington, D.C., the more impact we got up there. And so, well, let me tell you this. We got our May numbers in for membership. But that's what I was on the phone call for. NAHB's membership grew by 2,180 new members last month. How's it doing? People are beginning to understand this. Home builders, you know, they kept telling me, this is the new normal. There are just not that many builders around. You know, if you go to Houzz, H-O-Z-Z, and put in home builders nationwide, it's like 125,000. There's a lot of duplications in there. But they're out there. The 35-year-old, 45-year-old builders like I was at one time 4 years ago. Those guys are using Houzz and Pinterest and Instagram, and they're using Facebook. I mean Facebook. We old guys use Facebook. And they're finding out their information on Google and so on. And they got to be told about all the good work that we're doing at the local, state, and national, and get them involved. They need to be held by the hand and brought to one of these congressman meetings, or one of these governor forums that you're having, and see what they're doing, because they'll get involved. But we, the gray-haired guys, we need to go get them. 2,180 new members. One of the goals I set for our staff and our team this year is 10,000 new members. We had 250,000 members at one time. We have 140,000 now. We have 124,000 builders and associates. And that number's been absolutely flat since the Great Recession. And the only thing I contribute, people want to tell me that's the new normal. I don't buy it. There's houses being built across this country, being built by people that need to be a member and support these organizations. So that's the key. That's why we're doing the pilot program.
You got to think outside.
That's right. It took us a couple years to get that done, but we got to.
This is
Hey.
the light.
Julie, feel like that's a question for you?
Do you really think it's a reality for us ever to have an affordable building code? This is why I'm asking.
Well, the only hope it gives me, Julie,
So
is
Don took a lot of our code update classes, and the last one I went to, he held up the code book from 1987, and it was this big, and it was this thick. Then he held up our code book for today, it's like 6 pounds, you know, it's this massive thing like this, and every year, I'm glad I'm so old that I might not be doing this much longer, because I don't know how these new builders are going to keep up with these regulations, and it's just bizarre to the point of, I mean, you tighten a house to the code, and then you gotta put all these fresh air returns coming in, because nothing works, and it's just like, I don't know how you ever tackle something like that.
well, the really good news is imagine how big that book would be without the, 10 or 12 volunteers and staff that reviewed 2,000 changes every cycle. It'd been a lot worse. And the neat thing is, from 15 to 18 in the IRC, you actually got a cost savings. Which, okay, that's the right direction. Now let's just keep running it that way. But for Dominic Sims, the International Code Council CEO, to tell me, actually, he gave NAHB $50,000 and said, we want you to use this to make housing more affordable somehow. And we want to work with you with the codes to make housing more affordable. We need to undo the duplication, et cetera, et cetera. I thought that was a new day, because you're exactly right. The code book was that thick. And today it's like that.
Okay.
Kind of hard to do.
I'm curious if it's helpful if you can do it.
Bill?
So, it's interesting because we tell them, if you do this, it's going to make housing more unaffordable. We've been doing this for 30 years, 40 years, right? Now it's here. And now they want to know, why aren't you building more affordable houses? Duh.
Canadian lumber and affordable housing. That involves single-family residential buildings, by and large. It doesn't involve hotels and big buildings. However, is there any way of getting through to the administration the Canadian lumber tariff issue
Okay, so don't forget about steel and aluminum. I gotta tell you a funny story, and I'm gonna answer this question. I got all ready to have the steel stud guys come meet me at the housing center, do this big public release to go send a message to the lumber yards, to the lumbermen guys, forestry guys. That was the week Trump got on TV and said, I'm gonna do a steel and aluminum tariff. They canceled the meeting.
Okay,
Here's some little things you need to know. In America, we need to build about 1.1 million houses a year to meet the need. That's household formation in this country. We've been doing 900, essentially. So we met the need. 30% of the lumber that we would need to do that job, we cannot get in the United States. It has to come from somewhere. It has been coming from Canada. Recently, because of the tariffs, the lumber has been coming, you ready for it? That 30%? Russia. We told Secretary Ross we were going to go to Russia, and we would stand in front of a lumber mill in Russia and say, this is where the lumber's coming from because of your Canadian tariff. And he said, please don't do that. That's why we're meeting with him Tuesday. We have a chart, you probably get it on NAHB.org. It shows the lumber production in America like this, and then it does this. You know what? Who was president that year that did that? President Clinton. That was the year of the spotted owl. And that lumber came down and it never came back up. So, and has anybody noticed the number of forest fires we're having in the West? In America, let me back up. In Sweden and around the rest of the country where they do conservation on forest, they conserve the forest. There are 100 acres per tree. What did I say? 100 trees per acre. 100 trees per acre. In America, we're 300 trees per acre. The rest of the world looks at our forestry conservation and laughs. And here's the kick. So Granger McDonald is at the Congress testifying on this, sitting next to the Sierra Club guy. Granger tells him that. The Sierra Club guy gets on the mic, and this rarely ever happens when you're up there testifying, I do it 2 or 3 times, and says, I agree with everything this man just said. I'll agree we're going to fall out. We're not handling our forest right. We need to get the people back in the forest and start pulling the lumber out so these lumber prices can be straightened out. Won't happen fast. The only thing that's going to happen fast is if we get the Americans trade representative, or we convince Ross Tuesday to call the Canadians up and say, we need to talk. Just that will get the lumber commodity market to start falling.
Okay, NAHB now will have a report, I bet, after that meeting, right, on Tuesday?
Absolutely.
So that's our NAHB blog, so I hope you're all watching that, reading that, and it is available to you just to sign up if you're not already getting it. And all of that information, the follow-up from that meeting should be there. So I want to thank you, Randy, very, very much. You know that we don't always agree on everything, but you are always, always, always there to listen and to try to figure out how we can do what's right for this association. And so you've been a great
That's right for home builders. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very, very much. I think we have a couple minutes. We are, you might remember that I introduced Dawn and Lee quite some time ago. Dawn has had to run over